Aloha to all ye watching here, for this is the Sonic the Hedgehog CD Let's Play. I am Mitch McKidd, and welcome to a brand new LP of mine. The Sega a cappella thing. Yeah, we missed that already. Christian Whitehead. Very good. He invented the retro engine so he could recreate this game. And he did it in a great effect as well. Sonic. So there we are, Sonic CD. So the version I'm actually playing is the Xbox 360 Xbox Live Arcade version, which I got since I actually discovered that this game was already available. There are some subtle differences. You can actually choose whatever soundtrack, you can actually use the spin dash, and of course you can actually play Tails, but that is after you play the game and completed it for the first time. Alright, let's go for Sonic. I'll probably do Tails later. And there are some... Now, I'm going to actually talk about some of the subtle differences between the versions and this recent re-release. The original version had some FMV cutscenes which were rendered in the quality of the Sega CD, or the Mega CD as it's known here in the European region. Next we have is of course the soundtracks. The Europeans originally got the Japanese soundtrack, but in the re-releases we got the US soundtrack. But in this version, you can actually choose whatever soundtrack you can, either the Japanese or the US version. Don't get me wrong, I do actually like some of the US soundtracks, including Sonic Boom. But to be quite frankly honest, I actually prefer the Japanese soundtrack because it feels a little bit more cheery and upbeat. And of course, you know, there are a few graphical presentations that have been improved, as well as a few new moves, as well as Sonic the Hedgehog's signature spin dash being able to be turned on as an option. Sonic the Hedgehog. But to be fairly honest, this actually made this one of my favourites of Sonic games, Sonic CD. As this is a continuation of the 2D formula that was established in the first and second games, this was absolutely amazing. Okay, without further ado, let's get on with the first stage. We're off to Little Planet, which is mobilised, and we're off to, first of all, Palmtree Panic, the starter stage, which is pretty much a much more colourful version of Green Hill Zone. Now, each of the stages actually have a past, present, and future theme, whether it's good or bad future. Now, those who are wondering, yes, this is the first Sonic game to feature time travel, and of course the first to feature the speed up theme, which is used after you've got the running shoes. And this, of course, you can actually go over past or future. Going to the past means you can actually get rid of those robot transporters. Getting rid of robot transporters means you've got a good future. If you don't actually get rid of them, that means you've made a bad future. And you made a boo-boo. Honestly though, I actually think the time travelling aspect of this game was pretty good. It's a shame that later games actually exploit it, most notably Sonic 06. But honestly, because of the story and that stuff. How bad that game had a pretty bad story, but I will admit that the game wasn't that bad. But for this game, it actually is probably one of Sonic's best games. Well, ever since this re-release, a lot of people actually appreciated this game a lot more. Okay, so that was a pretty easy stage. I actually like this game a lot, but if there's a few things I can actually harp on about, which is pretty much a few things. Well, first of all is of course the special stages. Although some might say that the control is actually slightly improved, unfortunately though, trying to get the UFOs is still pretty much too much to ask for. They keep moving all over the place, and I pretty much don't like how the stages were handled in this re-release. Well, for every release, they keep on well, in each release, Sonic, these special stages just feel just a bit too much of a tacked on afterthought. However, it's the only time you can actually get the time stones. If you don't feel like going after the transporters, then the time stones will tickle your fancy. But unfortunately, because of those UFOs being so fidgety in the later stages, which is a huge issue, which I'll be actually commenting on, it'll be very hard to get every time stone on your first try. But, you know, practice makes perfect. As you can probably tell, the graphical presentation actually has aged well for Sega CD standards. This is actually pretty impressive, but this is in-game actually, because the in-game was actually sprited. Instead, it's the FMV cutscenes that needed a lot more remastering. Thank goodness they were a huge improvement in quality in the re-releases as well. In my honest opinion, I actually think this game is one of my favourite Sonic games in the 2D, of the 2D games so far. One of my favourites. Although I will not compare it to the likes of Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I will still say it's about the same boat as Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and the Sonic, and of course the Sonic Dance games. Most notably 1. Okay, so there we go. And you know that was a bit of a blindsided. I was blindsided by that enemy when I got into the future. Or no, the past actually. Sorry, mix up the words. I'm not going back to the future. I need to get some rings. Right, let's go. Thank you. Right, the moves of course include the super peel out. Your super peel out is, of course, the most signature move in this game. Shame it's only used once in this game. Unless you actually count ROM hacks of certain Sonic games, this is the only official time that Sonic has the super peel out. The other thing he has of this game is the spin charge, but I did not really take it as correct. But it wasn't as well received as the spin dash. Thank goodness that Christian Whitehead decided it was best to actually have the spin dash in it. I just didn't think that the spin charge was as well utilized as the spin dash was in Sonic 2. And of course, returning from Sonic 1, of course, is the giant rings. All you got to do is to collect 50 rings, get to the goalpost, and booyah, get to the special stages. Now I haven't explained this earlier on, but the special stages, all you've got to do is to bash 6 UFOs in the limited time available. Oh, you have to avoid the water. You've got to avoid the water or any traps, because if you hit any traps, you will lose rings. Hit the water, you will lose time. If you lose too much time, and if you go over the limit, you'll miss your chance. The time stones will be carried over. The stages will be carried over till later on, but then again, I would absolutely think that the stages weren't well utilised in the original version. But to be fairly honest, even though the controls were a little bit improved thanks to the control stick and the analog stick with this version, but unfortunately though, it's the UFOs that really give me a headache. Because they kept fidgeting all the time whenever I played this game on James Collection. I think it was James Collection I played this game first. Yes, I think it is, because I own that game on the GameCube. The UFOs keep on getting in the way and kept getting out of the way. I can't even actually hit them. Anyway, with that being said, welcome to Act 3 of the stages. The stages are usually boss stage. Whether you make a good future or bad future, they will actually have a still usually have a boss in it. And guess who it is? Dr. Robo-Eggface himself, or Ballsy McNosehair himself. Yes, whether the circumstances, you can either get a good future or bad future when you actually encounter Act 3, and it'll still stay the same whenever you complete it. With that being said, we've completed Palmtree Panic, and now we're at Collision Chaos, where we meet Amy Rose for the first time. Even though she's in Palmtree Panic in the present, we have to wait here until Metal Sonic destroys those spikes because they're in the way. Oh, and also, Amy gets kidnapped as well. So we have to save her, haven't we? Pretty much like why Mario has to keep on rescuing the princess every bloody game. Goodness gracious, Nintendo, could you please try something a little bit original? Thank you. Why can't you just take that note of inspiration from Mario 3D World? Because that game was great. It had a much different story. Even though Bowser kidnapped, it was at least a different set of people, which was, of course, the princesses, the Sprixies. Okay, let's go to the past and let's destroy that robot transporter. I actually like the music in this stage. It's actually pretty groovy. Now the music is actually now the music comes in two different categories. The Japanese soundtrack sounds a bit more like Euro dance and techno, as well as a few other stuff added in. The second one was the soundtrack for the US version is actually more pop rocky. Even though I actually kind of like that. Even though I kind of like some of the songs from the actual US version of the soundtrack, I actually like a few of those. I actually like the soundtrack, a few of them. Well, some of the later stages anyway. But I just didn't think it was as good as the Japanese version soundtrack. And yes, I actually used the spin dash. Yes, the spin dash can be turned either on or off. Either whether you can use the spin charge or of course use the spin dash. I think using the spin dash is much better because it's much more, you know, much more incredible to use. Anyway, with that being said, we've done the first act. There we go. Right. Excuse me for a minute, I need to have some coffee. Special stage 3, let's make this count. Right, there we go. Boing, boing, boing. Ouch. Ugh, I hate this step. Whenever you actually go through the later stages, then the UFOs keep getting progressively more and more incorporative, and it gets harder as well to get the time stones. Also, there's more traps and more jumps that can actually make your work a bit harder. Make getting that time stone a bit harder. Also, it's worth noting that if you actually go under 20 seconds, then a time UFO can actually appear. Oh, come on. There we go. I didn't need that time UFO because I actually managed to get that last UFO in the end. Right, there we go. Third time stone has been obtained. There we go. Another extra life. Also, it's also worth mentioning that because of this, the game's remastering, you can actually exceed 9 lives. You can actually go to 10 and above as well, which will be seen later on. Okay, so... Right, this one is actually... Now, the pinball physics, I know, has actually been refined, but although they don't really control as great as the one in as the physics in Sonic 2, it actually controls much better than that of the original version of Sonic CD. Although I will admit that Sonic the Hedgehog 2's pinball physics were a lot better. And also the bumpers make a much different sound, thank God. There we go, there's our next transporter destroyed. And also the springboard sounds were a lot different this time around. They actually make the same noise as Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Although this was the first game to actually feature the boing sound. That Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was considered to be a huge step up from the gameplay aesthetics in the Sonic the Hedgehog 2, as well as Sonic sprite being changed. Yeah. Alright, let's see. Dink, 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 dink. Getting rid of these is real hard work. There we go. Now some of now I need 50 rings because I need to get to that special stage and get that 4th time stone. Then we're gonna break off we're gonna break from this part, so let's go up. Right, let's go through there. We've got to avoid those spikes. And we're at the goal ready. Yes! So we are through Act 2 now, so we've done another good future, so we've done that as well. Alright, good job, Sonic. Now we got the fourth one. Although it's actually, the atmosphere there is pretty, but unfortunately it's those UFOs that really are starting to really become annoying now. They are really beginning. And this is really evident that I actually struggling in trying to hitting them. It really annoys me because the collision detection in these is just quite sporadic at the worst of times. Also, those traps don't help neither. Being put in the most awkwardest of places. Why, Sega? Why? Why, Sonic Team? Why? This is... You know, this may not be as bad as the ones later on. It's about 5 to 7. Stages 5 to 7. And, oh, for God's sake. I just hit that trap. Yes, whenever you hit a trap, you actually halve your ring count as well. That will be really disastrous if I lost every one of my rings and I didn't get a ring bonus. But trust me, it's going to get even worse later on with these special stages, going a bit too fast and being unhittable. Okay, with that being said, we are going to be breaking off from part 1, and I'll see... Right, we'll pause the game, we're going to take a break, and I'll see you guys next time for when we take on the second boss and we go through Tidal Tempest and the first part of Quartz Quadrant. So I'll see you guys later!